Good evening, Mount Vernon. This is Mayor Shawyn Patterson Howard. It is Sunday, April 11th. Welcome to Sundays with Shawyn. We have some really great guests tonight who want to talk about why they choose Mount Vernon and how they've chosen to be involved and engaged in Mount Vernon. But before we get to our guests, we want to just give you some updates. We're going to ask that you please take a moment to share this video. We're asking that you please take a moment to share this video or start a watch party. We're going to be giving out a lot of important information, and we just want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to get it. So I am going to take out this time to share it as well. So give me 1 second. Here we go. We want to take out a moment to share it. Okay, so I want to start out first and foremost by giving my condolences to the Simmons and the Copeland family here in Mount Vernon. We know that we lost this week. We lost Earl DMX Simmons. While he was born here in Mount Vernon. He still has family that lives here in Mount Vernon. He was raised and came to fame as a resident of Yonkers. So we just want to give a shout out to the Simmons and the Copeland family. The city of Mount Vernon, along with many of our community partners and just the residents, will be coming out on Wednesday night at 8 p.m. at 4th Street Playground just to show love to the family and pay tribute. Look, for those of us who know DMX, and there are many who love his music, and then there are others who also know his passion for community and helping people, making sure that communities were fed, making sure that there were Christmas toys, making sure that the community was safe, and that people who were returning home from incarceration or who were having challenges on the street making the right decisions. He was oftentimes there doing work in the community to help the least of them. He himself, throughout his life, dealt with many challenges and struggles. And so as an adult, he used his platform oftentimes to give back to the community. And we don't want that to go lost in all of this. People are talking about the superstar fame of him and his music. And his music absolutely had a message. But he also ministered to many people in the community and helped people in the community. So we will be remembering DMX and celebrating the Simmons and the Copeland families on Wednesday at 7 p.m. in 4th Street Playground. Some of the other updates that I want to give you is we are extending the summer youth employment applications till this Friday, the 16th. We will be accepting summer youth employment applications for ages 14 to 24 up until this Friday, the 16th. You can go on our website at www.cmvny.com and pull down that application. We're going to need our young people, especially those under 18, to bring your completed paperwork to City Hall, which will be inclusive of your working papers if you're under 18. So please, we only have a limited number of slots. Please get your paperwork in. It will be too late if you come in May and June. We will not be able to accommodate you. The summer youth employment application period has been extended from this past Friday to this coming Friday on the 16th. We know that the school district was closed and that many people were not able to get their working papers, so we want to extend it and make sure that we're fair to everyone. Insofar as COVID vaccinations, people continue to ask questions. If you've noticed, the Johnson & Johnson factory down in Baltimore had some challenges. So a lot of the doses that we've been expecting to roll out quickly are being held up. But you can please still continue to put your name on the waiting list at the Neighborhood Health Center as well as Grace Baptist Church. CVS pharmacies on Sanford Boulevard as well as in Fleetwood are registering people. Continue to put your name there. Mount Vernon Hospital also is administering. They get different ones depending on the doses that are available. They get Pfizer, they get Moderna, they also get J&J. So right now, those are the places in Mount Vernon. The public locations, you can get them. You can also contact your private doctor. There are private doctors, some private doctors that have access to them. So if you are interested, then please know to put your name on the waiting list at Grace Baptist, at Mount Vernon Neighborhood Health Center. Reach out to CVS pharmacies, as well as Mount Vernon Hospital, right here behind City Hall on North 6th. Yes, I did mention the Summer Youth Employment Program, Ms. Vincent. So please, it is extended until Friday. Please, everyone, this is the time where you let your children, your neighbors, your friends, your family, your relatives, your frenemies know we want to provide opportunities for our young people, but they have to have an application. We also know that Playland will be open, and they are doing virtual. They're doing Zoom interviews. So please, go to the county website, westchestergov.com, and get information on Playland, because they are doing interviews and they are accepting applications. This is absolutely the time for our young people to be looking for employment and setting up their summer opportunities, speaking with different agencies, stores, businesses, and looking for your summer opportunities. Oftentimes, young people wait until the summer comes and then it's too late. So we want to make sure you're doing that. We will be giving out food. Our grab and go food distributions will be happening this Friday. This Friday at the Dole Center at 5 p.m. will be the grab and go groceries, as well as on Monday, the 19th at 3:30. So the grab and go food giveaway, sponsored by the City of Mount Vernon in partnership with Feeding Westchester, will happen this Friday at the Dole Center at 5 p.m., as well as on Monday at 3:30 p.m. So please take advantage of that. As you can see, there are the dates, the 16th and the 19th, and then we'll have our May schedule out after that. We also have, I'm just giving the updates right now, we have our RBI baseball program. The RBI baseball program is coming to Mount Vernon again this year. So if you are interested, they have teams for young people between the ages of 5 and 8. So the 5 and 8-year-old program will start on the 17th, as well as 9 to 12-year-olds. There will be 5 weeks of practice, and then 5 weeks of team play. This will go from April 17th to June 19th. It is $40 to register for the program, $40 to register if you're a resident, and an additional $10 if you are a non-resident. So we'll have youth baseball as well as youth softball. I sponsor the youth softball program. If you're interested in sponsoring a team, I believe it's somewhere between $600 and $800. So if you are interested in registering your child, it's $40 plus $10 if you're an additional $10 if you're a non-resident. But if there are residents or businesses out there who are interested in sponsoring a team, please reach out to our Department of Recreation. I believe it is $600 to sponsor a team. We also have the 13 and over baseball team as well. So there is a baseball team for those 13 and over. Again, contact the Recreation Department. Let me see. I think that's it. If you are interested, please. So many people say, well, we don't know what's happening in Mount Vernon. It's difficult and costly right now to constantly send out information in mail. So we do send out a weekly report. We send out a weekly report every week, every Monday. The weekly report comes out. And if you will go on to www.cmvny.com and register for our weekly updates, you will get a full weekly update with information on announcements, different things that are happening here in the city of Mount Vernon. We'll keep you updated, as well as we send out email blasts throughout the week. If you could leave that one there, Malcolm, definitely. If you are interested in becoming a police officer here in the city of Mount Vernon, or you know someone who's interested in becoming a police officer here in the city of Mount Vernon, we are accepting applications through the 20th. That is through next Tuesday. Not tomorrow, not this Tuesday, but Tuesday, April 20th. We will be accepting applications. For people who are interested in becoming a police officer here in the city of Mount Vernon, the civil service exam for that position will be given on May 15th. So please, this is the time. Mount Vernon, we hear residents say all the time that they want to see cops from Mount Vernon, that they want to see a diverse workforce and a diverse police force. So this is the time where we need residents to step up. We're not knocking on people's doors to see if you're interested in being an officer here in the city of Mount Vernon, but we cannot say that we want a diverse police force and we want police officers from Mount Vernon if we are not encouraging our young people and our young adults to sign up for this exam. Is very, very important that we do so. This test is only given usually every other year. And so if you miss out now, you're going to miss out. But as you can see, this is a lot of what's happening here in the city of Mount Vernon. You can get this information very easily. Just really quickly, Wednesday, April 14th at 6:30 p.m., we are having our homes restoration program Zoom. It will give information to you about if you've fallen behind on your mortgage, how to make sure that your home doesn't go into foreclosure, as well as other homeowner assistance programs. We know there are people who need to do renovations and updates in their homes. So please, Mount Vernon, if you are concerned about and if you're falling behind on your mortgage, if you need to do renovations, please make sure you make yourself available and register for this Zoom that will be happening on Wednesday, April 4th at 6:30 p.m. In partnership with the Westchester Residential Opportunities and the City of Mount Vernon. I'm not going to go through all of these announcements because there are probably about another 30 announcements we can do, but we are please encouraging you to make sure that you register for the weekly report, as well as you can go on the CMVNY website, the CMVNY Facebook page, Instagram page, Twitter page, or Mayor SPH Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and you will also find the weekly reports there. So we're going to jump right in now, and we're going to introduce our guests. We have some guests here with us tonight. We have the Maynards. That's Michelle Moore Maynard. Well, she hasn't hyphenated her name, but for those of you who might remember her from growing up, she used to be known formally as Michelle Moore, and now currently as Michelle Maynard. We also have Dakari Maynard, who is her wonderful husband. As she is the wonderful wife. Y'all are both lucky to have each other, so let me not get in trouble right now. Let me set that straight. They are residents here in Mount Vernon. They're going to share with you why they've chosen Mount Vernon. We have Miss Caitlin Gleason, who is a lifelong resident here of Mount Vernon, who serves on our library board. She serves as the president of the soup kitchen here in Mount Vernon, and she's running for council while she continues to choose Mount Vernon. We have our Reverend Dr. Darren Morton, who is the chief of staff here, who is the pastor of Macedonia, who formerly sat on the library board, who currently is the chair of the youth shelter board, and is involved in many, and is the chief of staff here for the city of Mount Vernon, to really talk about, why they choose Mount Vernon. We oftentimes, hear people who are frustrated with Mount Vernon, who've given up on Mount Vernon. Some want to leave, others want to come. And we just wanted to really sit down tonight and speak to those who, while they are frustrated with some things, why they continue to choose Mount Vernon. And Mount Vernon, I get it. Before I ran, I was at that place where I said, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to move. I'm moving out to Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm moving across country. I've done Mount Vernon all my life. I'm going to look at another option. But love for my community kept me here. And love for my community caused me to step up in a different way to serve, even when people don't always understand and appreciate it. And my God, today in the New York Times, there was an article that talked about mayors resigning across the country in record numbers. Really, mayors resigning in record numbers across the country and deciding not to run again because of COVID and because of national unrest and how it's just hard to do this. But for me, I said, while it's been hard, I choose to stand. And so I'd really like to hear your stories and why you're choosing to stand. So we're going to start off with the Maynards because they're just adorable. And if you can introduce yourselves, talk about your history here in Mount Vernon, and then why you're coming back to Mount Vernon.
Okay.
Ladies first.
All right. So as mentioned earlier, I formerly was known as Michelle Moore, and now Michelle Maynard. And man, where do I begin? So I was born and raised in Mount Vernon. I was born right in Mount Vernon Hospital. And that's Dakota. He's not joining the show tonight yet. And while being born and raised in Mount Vernon, also know, like everyone knows, Lowe's and Patrice are my parents. And so a lot of roots here in Mount Vernon. What can I say? I went to Mount Vernon High School. I went to Parker Elementary School. I went to Franco Middle School. So I know this is my home. And so I'm excited to be here to talk more about DIY.
My name is Dakari Maynard, as the Honorable Mayor has mentioned. My story still is pretty similar. My family, my mother and father grew up on 11th Avenue. My father served in DPW for over 34 years. I went to school here, Lincoln, Nichols / Franco, Barris Chief on 5th Avenue when it was, now it's the seniors home.
Newcastle Thompson.
Thompson, yes, it's her building now. High school, of course, and like she said, it's the roots. And I believe there's more damage done when you try to rip up a tree that's been there for a long time and the roots run deep. There's more damage. Or if you try to remove yourself from something, it takes important and you got to be really careful, so to speak, before you do something that drastic, to a tree. And I guess we will return for more, but that's just the story.
Oh, you want our why now?
Yeah. So you are a principal. You're a school principal, correct? So you have a good professional job, great education, and Dakari, you're a firefighter here in Mount Vernon. So I'm sure your collective income is such that you could choose to live in surrounding communities if you chose to. And you have, as we've heard, you have Dakota, you have a baby. But
there's a lot, I would say. I think the starting point for us is we are Christians. We are very based in what God wants us to do. And so God tells us where to go and how to move. And a few years ago, before we got married, at a New Year's Eve service, the minister that was there invited us up and talked about how our roots are here in Mount Vernon, and that we have more work to do. That, there's something that the youth need something from us. Specifically, he mentioned the youth. And so there's us leaving, right, would be the opposite of what it is that he aligned us to when it comes to what he mentioned on that particular night. We did try to find other places, though.
We looked, we searched. We got to a point where we actually put an offer out on a house and it got denied. At that point, we were like, okay, we're done. We're fine where we're at. We're not going to look no more. And then God's will, our neighbor actually was like, our parents are selling their house. I was like, okay, we'll go look at it. And it's just how it worked, like finding a house before it hit the market, probably saving thousands and thousands of dollars, having equity now that we got it before it went on the market. So it's a blessing. And as for transportation, it's beautiful for her, 10 to 15 minutes. Me, I could walk to any of the firehouses if I needed to, but it works best for upbringing our son. The in-laws is right down the exit, next exit down.
One exit.
And it for me, it continues a legacy, knowing that my parents are not here. Both of my parents passed in 2019, 6 months apart. And I know the joy they would feel if I was like bringing Dakota to them in Mount Vernon. So I'm gonna continue the legacy here in Mount Vernon.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things is knowing that you want to bring your children up in a home, in a location where there's a lot of history. And we talk about, this criticality and the lack of equity in society today and the importance of them knowing where they come from. And so he will know where he comes from by being raised here in Mount Vernon. And so that's the beauty of it, is that somebody will drive past Stanford Boulevard and be like, that's your grandfather on the wall. It's a big deal to be known not just as a Dakota Maynard, but you're a legacy of the Moore and the Maynards.
Thank you. That's amazing. Thank you again for choosing Mount Vernon. And we're going to come back to you. We're going to go over now to Miss Caitlin Gleason. So Caitlin, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you continue to choose Mount Vernon and what's exciting you right now. I mean, I'm sure there are things that are frustrating you about Mount Vernon, but also what excites you about Mount Vernon?
Well, I have to say that one of the things that excites me about Mount Vernon is exactly what Michelle and Takari said. I have to say that I have a very different relationship with the city of Mount Vernon because I fell in love with it. I feel like it's another husband, a friend to me. I grew up in an environment that was so incredible that we walked all around Mount Vernon. I made the best relationships here in the city of Mount Vernon that I carry into adulthood. One of the things I wanted to mention is that I always heard of Lowe's and Patrice Moore, but Patrice and I have had a relationship that came out of sorrow, actually, because my father was in one room at Calvary while her mother was 2 rooms away from my mother. And Mayor Davis would come and visit my father and found out one of his best friends growing up was a room away. Mm-hmm. And one of the last things that my father did here in the city of Mount Vernon was to appoint Dakari Maynard as a firefighter here in the city of Mount Vernon. So Dakari and I, we have a very special relationship. That whole group of men that were appointed that day really are very special to me because my brother and I were able to steal my father away from Calvary for the day. And he had one of the most spectacular days of his life because he got to actually do the last class that he fought with Ernie about and said, I needed, more men in the city of Mount Vernon, fighting fires. And Ernie was like, all right, I'm doing it. Let's go. And Dakari was one of those young men that was appointed. And I believe it was almost 8 years ago. I think October will be 8 years, right, Dakari? So I don't know. I mean, I live and breathe Mount Vernon. I love Mount Vernon. Anytime I'm able to give my time to a project that I know that I can accomplish, I lend my time to. I was very lucky enough to be mentored by really great people here in the city of Mount Vernon: Roberto Puzo, Ernie Davis, Reverend Morton, Oscar Davis. I was on the board with them. I love Reverend Morton because I think he's got an incredible emotional intelligence, very neutral, knows how to negotiate difficult situations with the most respect that I've seen in anybody in city government. Why do I stay here? I wanted my daughter to have a diverse environment that I grew up in. I wanted her, she had a choice. She could have left Mount Vernon. My husband and I said, we sold one house here in Mount Vernon, said, we could go anywhere else. Where do you want to go? And she said, I want to stay here. And that coming from an 11-year-old saying, I want to stay here. And I ask her every year, I say, she goes, Ma, there's no better place than Mount Vernon. We have 3 train stations. I really do feel like Mount Vernon is the jewel of Westchester. We're just untouched. It's like a diamond in the rough. It hasn't exactly been polished yet. We're on an upswing. We have so many great things that we could do here in the city of Mount Vernon, but we've got obstacles. We're not going to sit here and tell you that it's all unicorns and leprechauns, as I say. You know, there's a lot of work to be done. And I find that sometimes people's egos get the best of them. And we need workers in city government. And we're the next generation that's going to take this city forward. And I want to be a part of that. I am running for city council because I got fed up with the infighting. I feel like there has to be some respectability that comes to Mount Vernon city government. I know that at one point Yonkers was in the same situation we were, you know, and now you don't hear any negativity out of Yonkers. The one thing I got really upset with the other morning, I woke up, it was about 5 o'clock in the morning, News 12 was doing a segment on marijuana being approved in New York State. And where do they go? They're in Mount Vernon to do that report. Why is that? You could have picked any other community in Mount Vernon to go to, but you chose Mount Vernon. You know, why are you not covering when a group of business owners and residents are getting hundreds of thousands of toys and giving them out to everybody in Mount Vernon? We've done that so many times. We've got the fire department, Santa Claus on the fire engine going to all different communities, and News 12 never showed up. They never showed up. They never showed up when we were feeding the hungry. They don't show up at the soup kitchen to see the good things that Mount Vernon does. And there's a lot of great things here in the city of Mount Vernon. We have the most beautiful homes in Westchester County. We got the most beautiful trees and greenery here in the city of Mount Vernon. And I just want to be a part of the people that show the positivity that we have here in the city of Mount Vernon. It's not about negativity. I put that stuff aside. I don't care about that because I'm all about the work. And I can't wait to see how Mount Vernon is viewed in the next coming years when you have a group of people that are willing to work together. I'm not saying that we're not going to disagree. I mean, Mayor, you and I have had several disagreements, you know,
Yes.
but we learn how to move forward and do what's best for the city of Mount Vernon. We have to do what's best for the residents of Mount Vernon. So Dakota and my Sophia can grow up and be as proud of Mount Vernon as I am.
Wow. Thank you so much, Caitlin. You know, like you said, we've had disagreements, you know, and we, over the past few years, we've worked hard to get to know one another. And that's important because people don't understand that you don't have to agree on everything. But the bottom line is if you love Mount Vernon, and if you want to see Mount Vernon thrive and prosper and grow, then we have to get past the personalities and the differences and
Amen.
focus on how we can become engaged and how we can become activated. I said to someone, you know, the other day, Mount Vernon is not unique. We have potholes and we have crime and, you know, we have sewer issues. Portchester had horrible sewer issues a few years ago. They've worked on it. Their sewers are back in line. Everyone, as I talked to mayors across the country, they was like, the biggest issue is potholes, snow removal, crime. Some of those things are the same thing. It happens in every community. The difference is how do we come together and work together to make our community different? When I worked in Yonkers, people said, oh my God, Yonkers is this, is that. And I said, wow, you sound like people in Mount Vernon. When you talk to people in White Plains, I've heard people in White Plains say, I'm moving to Mount Vernon because of what's going on there that's positive. But yet people in Mount Vernon say, oh, I'm going to move to White Plains. You never know your house. No one knows your house like you know your house. Everyone looks from the outside. Everyone looks from the outside and thinks that every place, the grass is greener on the other side. And someone said oftentimes, you know, we shine a green light on brown grass. So every community has its challenges. The difference is, do we choose to destroy our community with the negative talk? Do we choose to tear down our community? Or do we choose to put our hands to work so that we could build up our community? We have 100,000 residents and 700 staff. So we definitely need the community to come and work together and partner with us to make a difference, whether it's volunteering, sitting on boards, being involved through your church, neighborhood associations, running for office, working for the city, helping to raise money and donate to organizations that are doing different things in the community. This is how we build a community, and this is how we turn things around. So, Dr. Morton, I want to pull you in now. I mean, like I said, between faith, working for the city, volunteering everywhere and anywhere, and not just volunteering, but serving in leadership positions also in different community organizations. That takes an incredible amount of time. Why do you extend yourself beyond just work and church to make a difference in Mount Vernon? And talk about why you still believe in Mount Vernon.
Well, thank you, Mayor, first of all, for including me in this with some of your most distinguished residents, all of which I know and know well. Let me first of all say this, because I think that it's important for Mount Vernon to get a little glimpse of Darren Morton that they know, that most people don't know and don't get. I'll be the first one to tell you that my family probably doesn't really sometimes tries to guess who I am and what I do. Because as I often say, I'm a different animal. The way that I operate tends to be a little different than what most people think, because most people think of people always out to try to advance themselves or do for them and promote them. And that's not who I am. That's not who I've been my entire life. In fact, I don't often talk much, and folks, and that's some of the problems that also gets me in trouble, is because I don't talk. I don't have time for the minutia, for the nonsense. And I'm not out for continuously having frivolous, battles at any point. It's interesting to me, and I have to start here. It's really interesting to me that the Lord actually chose me to be a minister of the gospel. And I will tell you that I ran away from it for 10 years because I did not want that responsibility, because what I understood is that responsibility would direct me to be directly responsible to God for his people, whoever they are, in whatever venue that I operate. By trade, I have been involved in not-for-profit education and public service. That's what I have done. By vocation, I have been in the development of people's spiritual life and their moral compass. And those two coming together, oftentimes, especially when you think about being in the political world, they tend to be the antithesis of each other. And they don't necessarily work together. And so, yeah, it's a balancing act for me every day to be a part of local government, the political environment, and yet still stay true to who I am as a person, as a member of the clergy of the cloth, and one who believes in God. But I want to tell you, you asked the question of why do I continue to do it from Mount Vernon? Because if it had not been for Mount Vernon, I would not be who I am. It's important for people to know that despite what you see on that exterior, there's a lot of things going on the inside. One, I was diagnosed earlier on at Hamilton School as being dyslexic, having struggled all the way up to the 5th grade. It was my 5th grade teacher who said, "He's not slow. There is something wrong. There's something different about his learning skill set." And then what's really interesting is that I ended up some almost 40 years later, working at the institution that helped me to master how to utilize the way that I learned effectively. And when I worked at College of New Rochelle, teaching in the Masters of Public Administration program, because it was the College of New Rochelle that taught me how to kind of master my way through it. But all of that started because Mount Vernon, through my involvement in my education system my involvement at the Boys and Girls Club, my involvement in Troop 41 at Greater Centennial, my involvement at Macedonia Church, the years that I spent learning how to be a business person through Future Business Leaders of America with Dr. Smith, and all of the things that happened in Mount Vernon, which then propelled me to go on to college to get a bachelor's of business administration degree, focusing in on information systems and management, and then also being able to manage a staff of over hundreds of people at the nation's second or first, depending on the year, largest Catholic institution in the country. And being able to do that, and then be able to be called to the ministry back at my hometown in my home church, after being tutored and being under the tutelage of Dr. Dixon, all of that is surreal to me, and is the reason why I've continued to serve. And so I think it was God's pathway that got me back into Mount Vernon full time, right? Because I was working other places, but I was living here. But now I'm working in Mount Vernon, and I'm doing what I can do to help God's people. And I'm doing that not only at the church, but I'm doing that also in public service. I'm doing that in not-for-profit service, which is interesting because my dissertation in my executive leadership doctoral program, my dissertation was on the role of the Black clergy in urban education reform. Again, about how do you serve people and become leaders to be able to move. So your question was why Mount Vernon? Because Mount Vernon has given so much to me. Because Mount Vernon is a place that has not lived up to its full potential. And I believe that if we come together and begin to think about all of the creative, innovative, new ways in which we can move our community forward, whether that be in our city government, or be in our houses of faith, or in our community endeavors. And so, yeah, that's why I invest in the young men at the youth shelter. I spend time there. I continue to serve. I squeeze 48 hours into a 24-hour day. And I do that because I know that it's what God expected for me to do. I wholeheartedly agree with Michelle. It's when God tells you what to do, that's what you do. You move because God tells you to move. And so those have been some of the reasons why I do what I do, besides the fact that I don't want my mother to come back and to haunt me, because she always told me that I had a purpose and I had to give to other people. My father told me, don't be so much worried about reputation, but be focused in on your character, and what you do when you're alone with God is what counts, not so much what people think of you publicly. And so I keep on pushing. I keep on doing what I need to do. And so, yeah, somebody asked the question, well, why would you now all of a sudden jump out if you look at things that way and you really don't want to be a part of kind of the political scene? Why would you run for control of the city of Mount Vernon? Because God told me to do so. And because I believe that I can make a difference, and because I believe that my talents and my skills and the things that I've learned over the years are the things that were going to help Mount Vernon be a better Mount Vernon tomorrow. And what I do know is that this is not an academic exercise. This is an exercise of skill, knowledge, and commitment to people that deserve better. And so every day I strive to do that. I strive to do what I can do to move the community forward. And yeah, you alluded to it also. I don't just do this in Mount Vernon. I'm involved in a whole lot of organizations that have statewide and national impact. You know, I told somebody, this Black boy from the projects who somebody said would never graduate has been on every continent of this world except one. And I don't know if I'm getting to Antarctica anytime soon. And I know that that's all because of what Mount Vernon has given to me and what I want to try to give back to Mount Vernon. And so that's why I do what I do. And what I also know, and I'm going to end it there, is that not everybody's going to understand how I move, but that's all right. Because at the end of the day, When I lay my head down to the pillow, I'm at peace. And when I get up in the morning, I know that I got to look God in the face for the things that I do. And I know that he said, he who is first must be last. And so my focus is to be a servant leader. That's why I do what I do in Mount Vernon. And that's why I commit to Mount Vernon, because Mount Vernon deserves better.
Unmute yourself, Mayor.
Yeah, I was trying to navigate to the unmute. You know, I just think this is an important conversation to have. We look at celebrities oftentimes. We look at celebrities, whether they're athletes or singers or business people, and people criticize them oftentimes for being raised in a community and then making their millions or becoming popular and then moving somewhere, moving across the country and not staying and keeping roots one way or the other in their community and reinvesting. But each of you on here has been successful in your own right. You have education, you make good money at your jobs. You could have chosen to move out of Mount Vernon. You could choose not to work in Mount Vernon, or you could live here, commute to your job, and this just become a bedroom community. Because for many, it is a bedroom community. And one of the conversations, you know, that I had over and over again as I was running for mayor, as I was at the train station, I was looking at the amount of people who were going down into New York City or going up to Connecticut or going over to Jersey or wherever they were going every single day with such incredible knowledge, who were residents here, but not part of the community of Mount Vernon. Their church, their socialization, their volunteerism, their investment, all outside of Mount Vernon. For them, Mount Vernon was that bedroom community. We've heard that since we were little, that Mount Vernon is a bedroom community. But I challenge you, because I believe Mount Vernon has the potential, and we deserve to be much more than a bedroom community. And we have to find ways to engage people and to give them that opportunity to become involved. And I know she's on here because I already saw her make a comment. But I had a resident who had been on Facebook Lives, and she's like, oh, there's too much corruption and there's too much this, and these are the 20 things that are wrong with Mount Vernon. And we had an opportunity. I said, so I went in the inbox. I was like, look, if you have a lot of complaints, but do you want to have a conversation? Because we can complain. And Maria Dartouche spoke about it the other day. Mount Vernon, well, I'm not just going to say Mount Vernon, every community, there's a complaint culture. There's a complaint culture. But how do we move from complaining to investing and to becoming involved? How do we shift that dynamic? And so what we did, she and I, she followed through. She made a phone call, connected with my scheduler, and we had a Zoom conversation. And she's like, oh, now that I've spoken to you, you're not so bad. and now I understand your heart a little bit better. And I was like, okay, great. So how are you going to become involved? Because, this individual had worked in New York City, had worked for New York City government, had done a short time here for the city government on a special project. And as I sat on in the Zoom with her, I was like, oh my God, you have such incredible insight. You have great experience that you could bring. Not everyone has to work for Mount Vernon, but how can you take your education and your expertise and volunteer? How can you come in and mentor some of the people who work in the departments? We can't pay everyone. We don't have enough jobs, and then we don't pay enough for some people to even be interested in working for Mount Vernon. But how can you bring your expertise to bear on government, to invest in the agencies, to be involved in civic organizations, and make it better, make Mount Vernon better? So, Michelle, I know about 2 weekends ago, or maybe last weekend, you did an event. Can you talk about that? Because yes, you're a principal in the city. You're a minister here in Mount Vernon, and yes, you have a legacy. Your family has a legacy of service. But what made you step out and do something on your own with your friends and become involved in a different way?
I appreciate the question. I think that for a while, I've been talking about the homeless culture and poverty, and these are some of the things that I've been just bogged down with. And I thought about, well, what am I doing? And there's this song that I hear playing all the time because I love Air One Radio. That's a little plug. And it always talks about, like, if you don't like something, well, God created you, right? And so what are you going to do about it? And I also have this culture in my building as a principal that rather than complaining, what can we do to be solution oriented? So I decided that I'm going to plan a food drive. It's been on my mind. Something I wanted to do for a while, and I just posted on Facebook like, hey, I'm going to do a grocery giveaway. I didn't really specify any details, but just wanted to see who was interested. And we received about $600 in donations. And with that, we did this grocery give back right across the street from Grace Baptist Church. We went out there with all intentions to start at 11 a.m. And at 9:30, we were packing the bags, and we had, by 11 o'clock, only 25 bags left. So it just goes to show how many families in the community really benefited from that move. And it wasn't about me. It wasn't about me getting any claim to fame. I just really felt like this is something that our community could benefit from. And I realized you can think of something, but if you don't, until you do it, it's nothing, right? And so you gotta go out there and take something that you thought was a problem and, just do it. I think that's the status, that's where we are right now. The hashtag, even in our community, especially at Fresh Start, is like, just do it. If you think it, do it. Somebody's probably waiting for you to do it. There are people waiting on you to make the move, or that move that's going to benefit them. So I'm grateful to say that by 11:30, all the bags were gone, and something that I thought I was going to do from 11 to 2 p.m. was over, and 30 minutes after it started. So I plan on doing it again, and maybe thinking of some other things that we can do just to benefit the community. I'm excited to just give back. I don't have to work in Mount Vernon to think about ways to give back to the community.
Absolutely. That is so true. So I just want to give some really quick shout outs, because I know some of the people are online right now. We have Anissa Vincent, who's always stepping up, and she's volunteering over at the Denzel Washington School for Performing Arts at the Nellie Thornton campus, because her kids are involved in the arts and they're involved in football with the Jets. We have Sabrina Powell, who doesn't live in Mount Vernon, but does some work in Mount Vernon, but she's out there on a regular basis working with and trying to give out to the homeless. And right now she's kind of selling DMX shirts, and she's saying you can get a DMX shirt for $5 gift cards to Dunkin' Donuts, because then she can take those cards and give them back out to the homeless who are hungry. We have Sonia Murray. Sonia Murray is everywhere. She's always volunteering, somewhere. She's volunteering down in the veterans office. She's volunteering with the Razorbacks. We have, when you look at Coach Sparks, Coach Mark Murray, they also call him Sparks. He volunteered for years with the Razorbacks and with the Jets. And now he's gone on to be a Mount Vernon High School graduate who got hired last year as the varsity coach for Mount Vernon High School football. So everything doesn't lead to a job, but when you volunteer, it leads to an opportunity. Look, we even have electeds. We have our Councilman Thompson. Derek, he is a council person, but every time you turn around, he is out in the community giving out food. He's doing different things. He's showing up at fires. Ollie Evans is now our Director of Emergency Operations. But before that, he was DJing in the community. He was showing up and doing Red Cross relief and first aid and CPR and AED. So there are so many opportunities to volunteer. There are opportunities that if you don't have time, in the not-for-profit world, we called it the 3 T's: time, talent, and treasure. Some people have time to give, so you could volunteer Whether you're answering phones or you're doing some high level skill project, there you have time. Other people have talents. You might have a specific skill set that you could lend to an agency, to a church, to a neighborhood association, to volunteering for government or a business, whatever sector you want to be involved in. And some people don't have time. They might have talents, but their talents are focused in on different things that they're doing, but they have treasure, and then they have the ability to donate. So for people who want to be involved, for people who want to be solution oriented, for people who want to make a difference, they have an opportunity to make a difference. And I'm gonna give a shout out to Jesse Van Loo, because Jesse's out there and people say, well, how you gonna give a shout out to Jesse? He's always getting you on Save Mount Vernon. But Jesse also comes out for community safety efforts.
Yes, he does.
And I've walked with Jesse and we've marched with Jesse, and Jesse's interested in doing chess programs. So look, I don't have a problem with people who complain. My thing is, if you're gonna complain, also be willing to step up and make a difference. If all you're gonna do is complain, miss me with it. I have nothing to say to you. But if you're going to step up and make a difference, then I don't mind you complaining. I don't have any, I mean, not that anyone needs my permission to complain. They can complain about what they want to, but if you do have an issue, if you are going to be critical, also at the same time, show me how you're going to step up and be involved. Caitlin, you're laughing at me. What's going on?
No, I think you're absolutely right, because you're mentioning people that we can have disagreements with, but they absolutely are doing what's necessary here in the city of Mount Vernon. Jesse Van Loo, you have Michelle and Takari. Takari's doing a whole nother thing by going into burning buildings to save us. You know, working at the soup kitchen and you know, feeding people who are food deprived. It's completely different than going out into the public and seeing the homeless. That's something that people don't understand. Feeding the hungry, very different than feeding the homeless and giving them what they need. We have a group in the city of Mount Vernon. Sabrina Powell's a part of it. Sonia Murray's been there with the Echelon Society. Definitely homeless outreach that we're doing here in the city of Mount Vernon. And it's amazing that when people are open to talking to you, you know, and they might have a preconceived notion, but you never know what resources you bring together, you know. And I found that I've tried to help Sabrina. Sabrina's definitely helped me to see a whole nother side of things, you know. Like for a year, we were not able to feed the, I'm going to say food deprived, because not everybody that comes into the soup kitchen is homeless. Some people that come into the soup kitchen are just a paycheck away from homeless. They can pay for everything. They can pay for their apartment. They can pay for the utilities. They just can't pay for their groceries. And we welcome everybody Tuesday through Friday from 5 p.m. to 5:45. You come in, you get your grab and go, and you get a brown bag lunch for the next day, as long as we have enough to give out. But it's amazing how the relationships that you form with these people. My daughter Sophia formed a relationship with a woman named Sheila. We haven't seen her in a year. It breaks my heart. She used to take the time, and I would always tell Sophia, I never had to sit Sophia down and tell her to give these people the respect. My daughter already knew going into this situation that some people just needed to have a conversation. And I think one thing that I want to say, and I know we don't have a lot of time, is that I really have found that here in Mount Vernon, everybody does love one another. And I think you guys have to reach out to the senior citizens. A lot of the seniors are homebound, are not having conversations with people. I find that through campaigning and knocking on doors, sometimes they want to keep us 15, 20 minutes, 40 minutes. I don't really care, because I know that I might be the only conversation they have for the day. So I've learned from other people, you have to pick up the phone and call and see if anybody needs anything. And the soup kitchen's always there. You know, if you know of somebody that needs food or needs a bag of groceries, you know, by all means, please hit me up, because we get them on a regular basis. Sometimes we can't use some of the grocery items that people give us because there's just not enough. So we'll save them for a grocery bag. So Michelle, whatever we can do to coordinate, I'm going to be doing a homeless outreach in a couple of weeks. I'm going to reach out to you, and I'd love for you to be a part of it so you could see a whole nother side of it, because I'm grateful to Sabrina Powell to turn me on to something that some of these people have come into the soup kitchen, but it's very different. Homeless and feeding hungry, very different things.
I think, I would like to, just let me say this. I think that it's important, and I'll say this, and the mayor knows it, right? My mind is very analytical.
Yes.
It's just by trade, right? I mean, in high school, it was all about mathematics and science. In college, it was about math and business informations and all of that, right? And minoring in logic. So I'm very analytical about stuff. And what I find is very interesting about people, especially people in Mount Vernon, is that we quickly start to cast people as one-dimensional.
Right.
Right? Just because we see them in a particular light or venue. And so, like, I had to battle that, right? People in Mount Vernon knew that I was the pastor of Macedonian Baptist Church. So as far as they all knew, the only thing I ever did was to be a preacher. And they didn't realize that, I have a whole extensive, history of executive management, fiscal management, people management that goes beyond just being a pastor of a church. And quickly folks will do that. They've done that with Caitlin, right? You see Caitlin and Caitlin's role, but you don't know what else Caitlin has done. They've done that, of course, with Michelle and Dakari. I mean, you think about where people are based on what you know, right? Even the mayor and herself, right? And what they know she's done, but then they don't know all the other things that you do. And that's why I like this week. This week, I've been having conversations with some community members, especially folks that are on Nextdoor. And I even said to them, it's interesting because I've been working for the city of Mount Vernon for 9 years, and it's been a very rare occasion that people have actually asked me what I thought, rather than to assume what I either thought or was doing. And until they actually contact me and then find out what I'm doing, they operate in a way in which they think that I am doing something wrong or I'm co-signing on something that's crazy. And then folks don't know, like the mayor will tell you, I'm the first one to come in office and say, hey, wait a minute, hold on. I think we got to rethink this, right? And and she's not the only one. I've done it to the other mayors that I worked before them. I did it when I was working at the college. I mean, that's what I do because I want to analytically kind of think it through and give people room to make the decision for themselves. And that includes the community, right? You got to make a decision for yourself as to where you want to be and where you want Mount Vernon to be. And guess what? I'm going to be the first one to say it. I make mistakes. We all make mistakes. We all ain't going to get it right. But you know what? We don't have, and my preachers will tell you this. I say this to them. You don't have an option to push away from the table. You got to stay at the table. If you get upset, people do something wrong to you, whatever it is, you got to still stay at the table until God says, no longer do you need to be at that table. And that's what I would encourage Mount Vernon to do. When we look at Mount Vernon as a jewel of Westchester, right? As our own precious jewel, as we look at ourselves as a diamond in the rough, how do we then allow ourselves to shine in a community that we know has great talent, right? And one of the great skill sets that I know I have is bringing teams together and working out systems, right? And then knowing how to kind of move us forward. And that's what we need. So you asked, and I'm answering your question, Mayor, because you asked, how do we get people kind of to get beyond that? It's for them to recognize that everybody has a part and nobody has the option to push away from the table, even when we disagree. We can disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable in what we do.
Stay at the table. And I think I just want to build on that a little bit. I think that people are so quick to cancel without counsel. And I think that's unfortunate because when you're canceling somebody and you're putting them aside, you're not actually teaching them what they've done wrong. And that's where counseling comes in. That comes from conversation. And I think that people are too quick to cancel without a counsel. And I think that that's something that we all need as adults, that we all need to do with other people. Like, you might not like what somebody said, okay? But if they're ignorant, how are they going to get better if you're not going to counsel them and teach them a better way? And that's just how I feel. I don't feel like, we're so quick to cancel people. We should be counseling them. And that's something I learned from Reverend Morton, very, very early on, from being on the transition team with Mayor Davis. It was all about, let's talk to them. And I was like, what, are you crazy? And he's like, no, we got to sit down and talk. And I was like, all right. And I followed his lead. And you know what? It was a great lesson that I learned. It really was a great lesson that I learned, because 10 years ago, I would have been reactionary. Now I tend to sit back and listen to what people have to say. And I try to weigh both ends and hope for a good resolution.
So we're going to go over Dakari, and so they're like one thing before closing. We've already gone over our hour, so we're going to just go over for a few more minutes. I have to say this. One thing, people don't always know the history. Like you said, we're quick to cancel. So I think it was back in 2011, right? 2011. I had some Mount Vernonites at that time. I was CEO at the YMCA. They were like, Shawyn, you've always worked in Mount Vernon. You've worked here for a long time. You left and you went over to Yonkers. We want you to bring your time and your talent and your treasure back to Mount Vernon. And at that time, Clinton Young was leaving office. Ernie Davis was coming back into office. You guys had that transition team, and I went and I entered for the Recreation Commissioner, right? I went and I interviewed for the Recreation Commissioner. I think it was Darren Morton, Floyd Myers, Geneva Germain. They were on the committee. And I believe I was selected, but I wasn't given the job, because the question was, well, can we really control her? Can we manage her? Can we trust her? That wasn't the committee. That was a higher level. It's like, well, and it was okay, because I already had a job. I was a CEO. I was asked to come back and they liked my skills, but I wasn't hired. And Morton came in as the commissioner. Now, I didn't turn around and go, oh, you interviewed me and you took my job. How did you do that? And then it was funny, because then 4 years later, when Richard Thomas asked me to come on, he wanted me to come on as chief of staff or deputy mayor. That position didn't exist. So at one time he was like, well, come on in, you'll take Morton's job and we'll get rid of Morton, right? That was the thing. And so I didn't take the job, but I came and I sat with Morton. I was like, look, I don't want your job. I don't want to be the recreation commissioner. He wants me to come here and he's going to fire everybody until he gets me here. So what are we going to do? Right? That's the conversation we had. Because there were people saying, oh, she's going to come here and kick Morton out of his position. She's going to cut his throat. And then 4 years later, here you have Morton sitting as my chief of staff, right? So, there are 2 or 3 different occasions that we could have looked at each other and said, I don't trust you. I don't like you. I'm not going to work with you. But yet we're working with each other because we understood, our passion for Mount Vernon, our love and our commitment to this community, and the fact that we have skill sets that are complementary. And if we harness the collective passion, skill, and energy and vision that we have for Mount Vernon, then we can work through everything. People will always try and find ways and opportunities to pit you against one another. Right. No one can divide Mount Vernon from without. We can only divide ourselves from within. And my girl Cynthia, and I always say this because she says it all the time, Cynthia Turnquest Jones, TJ, she says, you can't conquer what you can't divide. You can't conquer what you can't divide. And for Mount Vernon, whether it was the Italians versus the Blacks, the North Side versus the South Side, now the Blacks versus the Spanish, Fleetwood versus south of Lincoln Avenue, we find so many opportunities. Today, I saw another one on Facebook, traditional churches versus the new churches, Pentecostals versus the Baptists. we look for opportunities to try and figure out how we can separate. My question is, how do we take a big needle called the love and the passion and commitment that we have for Mount Vernon? I love patchwork quilts. I grew up looking at quilts. You know, I don't think people do quilts oftentimes. And that has taken those oftentimes used and discarded, but we've kept these pieces of cloth around for some reason, and we find a way to stitch them together. So when we stitch together the Heights and Fleetwood and the Hilltop and Kingsbridge Heights and Oakwood and you know, Sanford Boulevard and Leicester, and we start stitching them together. When we stitch together different incomes, when we stitch together different educational backgrounds, when we stitch together socioeconomic groups, we have a strong Mount Vernon. We have a strong Mount Vernon, but we have to take the time out to recognize the value in our differences. We have to take the time out to have the crucial and critical conversations that we need to have. And by doing that, and by getting a chance to know the person and not the title or what someone says makes them difference, then we can do something great. Mount Vernon, we're getting ready to embark on our comprehensive plan here in Mount Vernon. That's really going to be a policy and a visionary document that determines how we go together and go forward as a community. We want people to be involved. We want people to be active. We want voices at the table. We don't set exclusive tables. That's not who I am. I've never been one to set an exclusive table. I'm a leader who looks around at the table and tries to figure out who's not at the table and how do we get them there. I don't just ask for people to become involved in ventures because they voted for me. I also ask those who did not vote for me to come and be involved in different things. I've said over and over again, I don't kiss rings and I don't have a ring to kiss, but I am the mayor of all of Mount Vernon, whether you voted for me or not. And so I want to make sure that we have the voices at the table, not just people who will say yes, but people who will push back. So, you know, in the next week, we're going to be announcing our comprehensive planning team, and this will talk about how we're going to develop Mount Vernon, how we're going to strengthen our neighborhoods, how we are going to invest in businesses, our green spaces, how we're going to plan for sustainability and green projects, how we're going to support entertainment, how we're going to work with our school district to continue to expand educational opportunities. It's something that we have not completed and ratified since 1968. And it is definitely a promise and a commitment that I have to this community to make sure that we finish it and that we push that forward. People have sat around and they've said, you know, look, if you look at Yonkers, when I went to Yonkers back in 2008, Getty Square, they called it Ghetto Square. They still call it Ghetto Square. But, you know, there was a lot of challenge, and they came together. They did their comprehensive plan. They did rezoning. They've started building their communities. 25 years ago, all of us were looking at New Rochelle and saying, oh my God, Macy's closed in downtown, the Rink closed, RKO closed on Main Street. A lot of the reasons we had gone to New Rochelle as young people, those things closed and New Rochelle was looking like a ghost town. But because the residents, the electeds, the faith-based, the business community, the neighborhood associations came together and they had a mind to work, New Rochelle is growing and thriving. White Plains is growing and thriving. And there is absolutely no reason that Mount Vernon will not do the same. The only thing that will keep us from thriving and moving forward, like Philadelphia and other communities around the country, is us. Is us fighting, is us looking at each other side-eyed, and is us tapping out and deciding that Mount Vernon's not worth it. If you really don't believe Mount Vernon's worth it and you have the ability to move, I invite you, please go somewhere else and complain in their community. But if you're frustrated, but you still desire to make a difference in Mount Vernon, we welcome you to the table. We welcome you to bring your ideas, your time, your talent, your treasure, and positive energy and solutions for us to come together and make this community great. because I promise you, there are people who know the potential of Mount Vernon and who are ready to pick up and move the ball that we're throwing away in the garbage. So if you want to serve in different ways, in different capacities, step forward and let's get to work. And Dakari and Michelle, I know you guys wanted to have one thing before closing.
Make it real.
Because you are our next generation. So we need to hear from you. You're our future.
I make it real quick. And I've got more of a reason to be in Mount Vernon through listening to everybody that's on tonight. They say it's a 6 degrees of separation throughout the world where you can't come within 6 people without knowing that person. Mount Vernon is more like a 2 degrees. Even on the fire department, right? I work with great guys. And when we go on medical calls, the amount of people that we know based on somebody we went to school with, somebody's mother, somebody's brother, sister, they're like their family. Gleason said, taking time to spend with people. Like, we get on calls and we sit and talk to these people and senior citizens in homes, and people want to cook for us. We said we have a laugh and here, and we go back to the firehouse and we talk about who they're related to. So we are who Mount Vernon is. So when we're out, whether in Florida, Jamaica, and we speak about being from Mount Vernon, just like in the Bible, we are the Bible that somebody's going to see. Like, they may not believe in the Christ, but we have to let that light shine from the inside and be seen by the people that we're coming in contact with. And the same thing goes for Mount Vernon.
Mm-hmm. And Mount Vernon is welcoming. That's the last, I want to finish with that. Mount Vernon is welcoming. Mount Vernon is not just about being a community of supporting people who were born here and raised here. We're not backwards or anything of that nature. We welcome new people. We welcome people who want to be involved. We welcome the diversity that resides here in Mount Vernon. We want everyone to give each other a chance. So if you're new to Mount Vernon and you want to become involved, step on up and become involved. You don't have to know everyone, but you'll never get to know people if you stay isolated. And if you say, well, I'm not from here, I'm going to continue. I know people who from Mount Vernon who've moved to Poughkeepsie, right? But they still come here for church. They still come here to get their hair done. They still come here to hang with their friends. And so the question is, I always challenge them, like, well, how are you going to ever really feel comfortable in your new community if you don't take the time to get to know people in those new communities? So it's the same thing here. If you've moved to Mount Vernon and you don't know people, come on out, enjoy what's happening in the community and get to know people. And when we had the Easter egg hunt over in Hartley Park, it was great because there were about 3 or 4 couples who had moved to Mount Vernon in the last year since we've been on pause and we've been on lockdown. And they pretty much said, wow, this is the first time and this is the first opportunity we've had a chance to kind of come out and really be a part of the community. So if you're new to Mount Vernon, or if you've been living here 5, 10, or 20 years, but you've never become involved, this is the time, this is the season to become involved in the transformation of Mount Vernon. We're not so different. We have much more in common than we have differences. So come on, get involved. I want to thank each of you for participating and contributing to the conversation. Everyone, stay well, stay healthy, stay safe. And just again, please, if you're able, come on out and join us at the vigil on Wednesday night at 4th Street Playground that we're having for DMX. To lift up, support, and pray for the Simmons and the Copeland family. Also, remember, if you're interested in becoming a police officer, you can sign up here at City Hall. You can pull the applications down online, but the application deadline is April 20th and the test is May 15th. If you're hungry or you know a neighbor who's hungry and you want to come and get them some food, then we have food available on Friday at 5 p.m. at the Dole Center, and on Monday at 3:30 p.m. at the Dole Center as well. And if you know a young person between the ages of 14 and 24 that is looking for a summer youth job, please have them come out, fill out their application, and bring all of the necessary paperwork back here to the Youth Bureau. Our RBI sports, baseball, and softball leagues are starting on the 17th. Our Razorbacks football league has started, and they're up and they're out and they're active. And if you're interested, like I said, in sponsoring a baseball team or a softball team, you can sponsor them for $600. If you are interested in sponsoring a young person who's participating in Razorbacks and Jets, you can sponsor them for the spring and fall seasons. It's a cost of $400 per young people. And if you can't pay $400, donate $25. Donate $25, and someone else donating will help to cover the cost of a young person. But Mount Vernon, let's use our time, our talent, and our treasure to reinvest in our community and to confront some of the frustrations that we might have and be solution oriented. And the last thing, Mr. Johnson, I don't want you to think that I ignored your question. He said, if we pay taxes in Mount Vernon, shouldn't that take care of everything? Yes, people who are complaining are paying taxes. Tax dollars are never sufficient to cover everything that needs to be done in the community. And I think we need to do one whole show on people understanding really how tax dollars are broken up in Mount Vernon. If anyone got to bring home only 25% of their pay to take care of their family, you'd never be able to do it. And in the city of Mount Vernon, only 25 to 27 cents of every tax dollar that we collect actually goes to the city budget. 60% goes to the school district. The overwhelming amount of monies and tax dollars collected goes to the school district. About 27 cents goes to the city of Mount Vernon to provide services for 100,000 people, and 13% of it goes up to the county, which provides services like DSS and other things that does come back to the city of Mount Vernon in different ways. But our budget is not as big. Our budget for a larger city is half of what New Rochelle's is. So we have to find different ways, not just the residents, to raise money for taxes to provide services. And the last question, the status of Memorial Field. Is Memorial Field continues to go forward. I know it still looks like it's just dirt being moved from place to place, and dirt is being moved, but it's being moved so that the plumbing and the electrical work that needs to go under the foundation for Memorial Field is going there. We still anticipate Memorial Field being ready to go in October of this year. A football field, a soccer and lacrosse field, all, a combo field, 8-lane track, 3,800 seats, 3 tennis courts, our Mount Vernon, our recreation center that's going to be down there. We are moving forward. It is shaping up. It is shaping up, and we are excited about what is coming. My question is, when you going to call me? And I don't know what you're talking about, but I'll call you when I get off the show tonight. So take care, everyone. Be well. And again, thank you all for coming and spending time with us tonight. Have a good night.
Thank you, Liz.
Bye.
Thank you.
Stay at the table, everyone. Stay at the table. Stay involved. Even if you're frustrated, stay at the table. You have a seat at the table. God bless.